Welcome to another episode of the No Ceilings Podcast. I'm Tyler Metcalf, joined as always by Tyler Rucker. Rucker, how are we doing?
Doing good, Metcalf. Another week of talking some draft prospects, some basketball. Just looking at the countdown and wanting it to go faster, but I'm excited. Another episode. Shocker alert for every one of the listeners. I'm excited. I feel like I say that every single episode. So happy to be back. Thanks for everyone checking in. Metcalf, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Very excited for this weekend. Very excited for college football to officially be back.
Yeah.
Um, you know, just fun stuff. We got Minnesota, Nebraska tonight. Go Gophers. Got Michigan opening up this weekend. Go Blue. Just God, it's football season. And it's almost basketball season.
It's nice
Um,
distraction to have football back so I can be like, okay, I need something to
it's
help
just
time
something.
go
It's just
faster.
something.
Yeah,
And
something.
it just means we're one step closer to basketball season. Have you been watching much of FIBA?
Yeah. The only game I didn't pull off was the 1:30 in the morning start.
It's like you don't
Didn't
even
stay up
care.
for that one. I can't do that much. That's usually my hours. I'm usually the 3 a.m. in the middle of the grind, but I was like, I got to pick my battles. So watched a couple games. I Team USA's bench is just awesome. Like, I just love the energy some of the guys bring off. And I think it's also important. People are like, well, why aren't they starting some of these guys? And I'm like, well, because you have the luxury of that bench coming in and really bringing energy. Like, that's, you're trying to get a rotation. You're trying to build some consistency. But have you watched any of the games? I mean,
Yeah,
Ants looked good at times. Um, it's, I won't get too off track. It's always funny, some guys that are like studs in the NBA that FIBA, they just can look like different
mhm,
players. And like Brandon Ingram, I think is so awesome. But I
yeah,
feel like in FIBA, he's kind of looked a little hit or miss sometimes. And I'm like, I understand that. It's a different world. Paulo looks like he might be a Team USA guy for the next 8 years. I just love Paulo Banchero on FIBA play. What about you?
yeah. And I've watched when I can. I haven't been destroying my sleep schedule for it
Yeah.
necessarily. But if I have time, I'll download the game from Synergy or watch it in the morning with my coffee. Um, it's just such a different game, and I some of the hot takes about guys either being absolute bums or the second coming have been interesting, and it's whatever. It's the only basketball we got right now,
Yeah.
so it's fun, and I kind of feel like the big takeaways from international play should only be excitement if a young guy really starts kind of turning the corner, like Darius Halliburton, Austin Reeves, Anthony Edwards, and with the guy like Ant, I know in the exhibition games he was really showing out, and slow start to the actual tournament, but he's still doing the little things like playing really good defense, moving the ball, rebounding, moving off ball, that kind of stuff. So even though the points haven't been awesome, he's still doing stuff that a lot of people really didn't think he was capable of coming out of school. So, that's just been a really fun development in his game specifically.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see kind of their team moving forward to some of the big, heavyweights. Um, but I've loved watching them because they're just a scrappy, tough team now that, like guys like Josh Hart, you realize like
Mhm.
this, they're very important for setting the tone with some of the stuff. Jaron Jackson Jr.'s looked awesome. Um, Reeves, man, what a story. Like he had one game, he came in. I was like, the game shifted when Reeves came in, and that bench unit, like I've said before, it just looked awesome. So it's a fun team.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big like, okay, who can step up? And Halliburton's been a joy to watch sometimes, and like I said, Paulo. It really is a fun team for like the youth. That's what
Yeah.
I love watching the young teams, the young players that get to build confidence there. And usually you've seen a lot of players that when they get their shot to play with Team USA, they almost carry it and it pays off big ways at the NBA level, like Klay Thompson when he did it. You've seen it with a lot of players. So yeah, it's been awesome. And it's any basketball I can
Yeah.
watch. I'm like, just yeah, all right, I'm in. So
So you're telling me that you're enjoying really well organized and constructed basketball being played at a really high level more than some of these really fascinating high school and EYBL games that we've been diving into.
It's a good way to balance it out, Metcalf. Okay, it's a good way to balance it out. But no, I mean it's just exciting stuff. It's cool when guys are playing for their country or
Yeah.
and they're so prideful. Like that's I
there's
love that
always a
stuff.
different sense of pride, and we obviously just big overview on the USA team, but internationally, they're SGA is dominating with Canada.
Yeah.
Doncic looks like Doncic. There's talent galore, but this is not a FIBA episode, as you can tell by the title. We're diving back into 2024 prospects: Caleb Foster, Garwey Dual, Matas Buzelis. Let's get into it. Caleb Foster, ESPN's 24th ranked recruit, headed to Duke, listed at 6'3", 180 pounds, and as a point guard, which I thought was interesting. I didn't really get point guard vibes from him, but Caleb Foster headed to a loaded Duke roster with guards. How they disperse all of that, we kind of mentioned that in the previous episode with Jared McCain. I think it's going to be fascinating. But Rucker, where are you at with Caleb Foster, kind of big picture?
Okay, so I have to call you out. Where'd you get the 6'3" ranking? Because
ESPN and Duke's website, I believe.
No, Duke has him at 6'5", 197.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, then when I looked for that, he was not. They had not updated that.
Okay. So the only reason I'm calling you out is because watching him on tape, he looks big to me. Like he looks like a big combo guard.
Yeah, agreed.
Shooting guard almost, I want to say, leaning that way. Caleb's one of those players that, obviously he's going to Duke. We've talked in previous episodes of that Duke roster is going to be really exciting, especially the backcourt. It's going to be crowded. So who's going to separate themselves? And I feel like a lot of people think that Caleb could almost be maybe he doesn't get the shine that he did as a one and done, but he could explode as a sophomore breakout. And I mean, watching his film, and there's still some people that are, have him as a preseason lottery ranking, despite that crowded backcourt. But man, watching that film, I was like, this kid can play, and I'm really excited about his game. I'm excited for all three of these players. I'm pretty pumped about each of them in their own way. But Caleb surprised me. One of those pleasant film sessions that you keep finding stuff quickly that you're like, I'm a fan of this. So what did you think, Metcalf?
Yeah, and the scoring was the first thing that really stood out to me. And, just kind of scrolling through some of his game logs at first, just trying to find games to watch, what to avoid, make sure that he actually played in the game before I download it and watch it. It's like, you're looking at the points column. It's like 38, 25, 44, 33. I'm like, does this dude ever have an off shooting night? And not really. But it's not that he's just a, lights out spot up shooter or, this super inefficient volume scorer. I thought there was real 3-level scoring craft to his game and real scoring versatility that was really, really exciting. Especially, and, now that I've learned that he's 6'5" and almost 200 pounds, that is a much more intriguing physical package to go along with those scoring tools. Because in my notes for cons, I have size because 6'3" guards, especially 6'3" shooting guards, not a great track record. But 20 extra pounds and 2 extra inches, that tends to change things.
I'm really excited. That was one of the things watching his film. I was like, oh, 6'5", huh? Like just kind of intrigued where I was like, he has the handles really pop at me. The handles, the multi-level scoring ability, like you're saying. And I think the handles, it's almost like he's flashing that there could be lightning in a bottle when it comes to like, he can really get, in and out quick with some handles. And I'm like, all right, if you add another element to that, another counter or another way to set up a defender, I like when he can get downhill. I even wrote down like his balance really impresses me. His lower body like strength when it comes to getting in and out of like driving lanes or attacking the defense. He glides through traffic. He gets up in the air and has creative finishes. There's just a lot of checking the boxes when it comes to this lethal scoring upside that Caleb Foster has. So I'm like, damn, Duke, heck of a backcourt. Like I'm a fan of all three young guards they're gonna have and this year.
Yeah, so let's stay on how he fits with Duke for a minute here. So the big names there are obviously Tyrese Proctor and Jared McCain. How do you think that whole kind of guard rotation is going to play out, and where do you kind of see Caleb Foster slotting in there?
I mean, the funny thing is, I feel like we did the Jared McCain episode, and we were like, I'd love to see Jared and Tyrese Proctor play, and be a little combo guard heavy,
Hmm.
and maybe Foster could be, if he could showcase he can play off the ball and be effective. I like that more, because I don't know if you feel this way. I feel like he could transform to being more of like a, hey, you're going to play off the ball and be a creator to get your
I thought
shot.
that's where he looked best,
Yes.
honestly, or the most efficient, or that was when he was off ball and using that kind of scoring versatility and strength and balance and footwork as an off ball creator. That sounds weird, but I'm lacking a better term for it right now. When he was playing more of that shooting guard role, or that secondary creator role, that's where I thought he looked most comfortable and most efficient and most effective.
Yeah, he has that off ball. I know what you're trying to say. He almost has like the vision and ability to set people up like a point guard, but he can play off the ball and really create his own stuff. Like I'm right there with you. I feel good about him as like a plus sized, almost like a plus size facilitator with multi-level scoring ability. But
And
you know,
he's really eager and really great at punishing like defensive mistakes, whether it's a sloppy closeout or a lackluster rotation. He is countering your momentum and he's making you pay a lot of the times because he's getting into the paint really, really quickly and typically scoring in there. But then he also showed flashes of being able to kick out or, some interior passing stuff, which we'll get into later. But that ability to, like you were saying, kind of set up defenders like we kind of typically see from a non-ball creator, but we see it more in isolation creation and pick and roll stuff where they catch the defender leaning too early in the screen and then they deny it and go the other way, or vice versa. He kind of does a similar thing, but with closeouts and rotations and switches and that kind of off-ball movement to set up those opportunities for himself and others.
absolutely. I think something that jumped out at me too is at first I was watching a couple plays and I was like, do we have any afterburners here? And then when he wants to take it up another notch, he's got that speed to really like, whoa, okay. And it's almost it's like sneaky burst is what I like to call it, where it's like
Yeah, I
he
don't think he's
has the
super
other,
explosive, but
yeah,
it's like that speed in like short distances.
yeah, like quickness almost to like he can push it a little bit, but and maybe that's a little bit of like he is under control. He goes at his speed until he realizes like, okay, I have that juice in the tank to push it if I need to. But just a lot like seen him dance through traffic and finish with impressive, up and under fakes to with touch. Like there's just he looks like a scorer. He
Yeah.
looks like he's got that scoring mentality, that scoring talent to just be versatile and be a nightmare. So I'm really excited about him. It's just one of those names too where I'm making my board and throwing names around, and then you watch Caleb Foster's film like deeper, and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna probably adjust this ranking quickly. So like, it's gonna be a fun class. Everyone, stop saying it's not gonna be. You better get on that train. I would love Caleb Foster as a potential like developmental piece if I was a team. Like he has a lot of upside.
Yeah, and I think there's a ton of we've been preaching and um praising the offensive side of his game, but I think there's a lot of potential on the defensive end too, where he's not necessarily a lockdown defender, but that strength that he has and that balance and the footwork, it shows up a good amount where it's like he'll really lock down a guy on ball, and it's like, where was that the previous 20 minutes, Caleb? Because now you're showing me that you can do it. I need to see that a little more, and maybe at Duke, where he's not necessarily the guy all the time, that comes out a little more. But where are you at with his defense?
There's flashes where I'm like, I need that more often. I saw some good off ball stuff where he understands to rotate and be where he should be for positioning.
Yeah.
Some help side or blocks where I'm like, that's really impressive. I think maybe the one area that just jumped out at me is like, I think he rated out good when I was watching EYBL stuff on him, because I just went back. I was like, I need as much as I can get. But defensively, he rated out good. But I think there's some screen navigation where it's just that first step gets a little wide when it comes to, like, adjusting and chasing. And I feel like that'll be something that's figured out. But he's also had some where he's right on the hip and he can test the layup and a pick and roll defense. So I think there's good flashes, good foundation to grow. But I'm like you, he's big, he's tough, he's got a good strength. So there's room there for some stuff to get exciting defensively. It's just got to be more consistent in my book.
Yeah, agreed. And I do think that he tended to make up for, any lapses with really excellent rebounding,
Yeah.
especially for his position. That was something that seemed to pop every game where it's like, God, this dude's really hitting the boards. But you're not drafting a 6'5" guard to be a good rebounder. It's just kind of, cherry on top of the sundae. But let's dive into some of his film here. So let's start with the scoring. And you I love just his ability to kind of adjust here, and what we were talking about earlier with that ability to create off ball and attack closeouts. Guy comes, the defender closes out high in his stance. Foster immediately blows by, has that deceleration to avoid the rotating defender, and you know the creativity to adjust and finish around it.
Yeah, the mid-air adjustment with him. Usually, when I see a play like this, I'm like, okay, is this fool's gold or is this a reoccurring theme? And then I saw like 8 more sequences like this where I'm just like, no, this is a talent. Like, this is a headache. This would be a very annoying headache if you're a rim protector or a big man looking for blocks, because you think you got him and all of a sudden it's just, oh, midair adjustment, perfect layup off the glass. And that's where I'm like, he's going to be a potential headache if the impressive handles almost unlocks another level to get kind of his shot whenever he wants. And I think there is a lot of circumstances in which that exists, but just building off of it and continuing to build that handle.
Yeah, and you talk about the handle. There's nothing super flashy here, but he's just constantly handling pressure, and then it just has the strength to finish through the defender. And he, goes into the defender and takes away his ability to kind of elevate and really wall up. And I mean, he's getting hounded here by multiple guys, secures it through traffic, and isn't shy about going through contact.
I think the handle sometimes, like at first I was like, oh, he can get that a little wide. And then all of a sudden he just will have it on a string. And I'm like, all right, so you're under control with this. You're not getting too crazy with it, but it's like you said, he's fearless to get downhill. He understands his frame and how he can get attack and go right into defenders. And I think that's what gets so creative. Like that clip, so many players are just out of control. And I feel like he constantly finds a way to get the balance back and understand where to go and navigate through traffic. So
yeah, and then he can do it out of the pick and roll too, where he's not just attacking closeouts, but I just love the burst downhill once that lane opens up, the strength to hold off the defender and then finish on the opposite side of the rim. Just a little hesitation coming off that screen too.
That's like a play that just screams like, oh, this is a hooper. This is a scoring mentality, because it's the great hesitation right after you get that initial screen to just kind of pause and freeze almost the line of defense, and then just hitting that step right there is where I'm talking like the sneaky burst where it's like, oh, he's right on his hip, and then you just blow by and one with great touch on the other side of the basket. Like, that's a play that just jumps at me of like, oh yeah, that's a bucket getter right there. Like, he understands where to get people to bite. And I think a lot of young ball handlers would come off that screen and almost commit too early to that drive. And because you're patient, like, I love also the freeze frame of the big guy going, where's everybody else? Like, what'd you expect me to do? And it's like, that's why he's going to be a frustrating guy.
Yeah,
hands up, like, come on, what's going on?
Come on, buddy. No, that's on you. You screwed up your level. You screwed up your lane. You turned the wrong way. Gotta love big clumsy big dudes. Just the best. But the scoring is the big intrigue, and I think Foster's kind of day one skill. But when we think about him translating and growing into an NBA role at that size, that just screams NBA combo guard. When you look at 6'5", you got guys like Jamal Murray, who's 6'4", Devin Booker 6'5", guys like that, and that's where the playmaking really has to come along, because those are two areas where those guys have really, really grown a lot, especially Jamal Murray with the kind of two-man game he runs with Jokic. I think we've seen some of that with Foster, not necessarily to that level, but I think there's still some playmaking stuff to his game. I mean, first, I just love that rebound, pushes in transition, collapses everyone, and then just knows he has his guy trailing on the wing and kicks it out right into his shooting pocket.
I came away really intrigued with the playmaking. Because it's not flashy, Metcalf, but there's a lot of really good feel, understanding. I hate that I'm just going to keep comparing it all the time, but it's the Asar Thompson thing to me of just like, he's going to find you. Like, he understands like, defense collapsed. This is where the ball should go. And I love that recognition. I saw a lot of plays in which I'm like, that's a great kick. That's a great decision. It's great extra. And it's not going to be on a highlight reel, but for draft sickos and evaluators, you're checking the box right there of like, yep, that's exactly what we want to see. And to get an assist,
have to make the shot.
Thank you.
I'm listening. And
that's going to be a thing all year.
No, but here we have another one. We kind of see that similar hesitation and attack move that we saw in the finish through contact earlier. But this time he's collapsing the defense on him and reading that weak side and making again, just another perfect kick out pass.
Right. It's just a lot of it. That's where I'm saying the handle, like there's some good handles to kind of get the defense to react. And then he surveys and is like, okay, where am I supposed to go? I attacked, everyone collapsed, make the easy read instead of, I like that decision instead of like, hey, I'm in traffic, let me throw up a floater here.
Mm-hmm. Which he does sometimes. A good amount.
Yeah.
He's capable of making this read, which, when you think about him playing alongside a guy like Jared McCain or Tyrese Proctor, that's where it's like, oh, I like him kicking out to those guys a lot more. But like as he attacks here, he gets both defenders to close on him. That lane goes away. This defender at the top of the arc still is kind of in the passing lane, so he just backs it out, little escape dribble, which sends that defender a couple steps the other way, creates that lane. Then he attacks, gets 5 defenders in the paint here, and just makes an easy read. It's keeping it simple and just kind of moving guys with not everything has to be the flashiest move or combination or pass in the world. It's just, is it the right one? And he tends to do that a lot with his playmaking.
Amen. Doesn't need to be flashy, just needs to be the right one.
And we'll end on a little flashiness here.
I love this play. I watched this play like 5 times. I was just like, and I think my favorite part of this is it's literally off of his own rebound. And it's just a quick reaction of ball fake, drive, reward. Like, it was a good shot. I liked it, but just the understanding of react of like, where do I go right after this? And I love that the first mentality of his head is ball fake and attack, instead of some guys would be like, oh, reload, like throw it right back up. And I love that it's like, no, let me put it down, attack, and make an easy play for my teammate.
Oh, it's great.
Sweet.
That's
sweet.
It's
beautiful.
That see a lot of guys make plays like that in the NBA. Okay.
I'm so damn excited about this class because guys like this, I keep watching and I'm like, stop with the bad rep. Now, I know I'm not saying like Caleb Foster, like, oh, superstar. I'm just saying there's a lot of really good like stuff brewing in this class where I'm like, this could get fun, folks. Like, get excited. I'm driving myself crazy. I want people to be excited. Are we done with Caleb, or do you want to move on to other areas of concern?
Do you have any big picture thoughts with
No,
Caleb, or any remaining anything I missed?
I mean, I think he could be kind of a quick riser. It's just how does it work with Duke? It's a fantastic problem to have because I could see Caleb playing off the ball and playing with those guys.
I think he is going to be the one out of those three that spends most of his time off ball.
Here's a question for you. Could they go small ball and play them, all of them?
Yeah. I
think
really
so.
I really want them to at least experiment with it a lot, like early in the season, like with these preseason tournaments or cupcake games or whatever. I want to see a lot of those three, with Filipowski at center and then
Mark Mitchell
at
at the four.
Yeah, or
Ooh.
you got a guy like Sean Stewart too.
Yeah.
I like Mark Mitchell a little more. Yeah, and
That makes some sense to me.
I think there's some really, really fun and creative stuff that they can run, and I'm just dreading that we're gonna get just a fuck ton of Jeremy Roach and Jalen Blake's lineups, which, no disrespect to those guys, but kind of disrespect to those guys.
A death lineup of those three guards with Mark Mitchell at the 4 and Filipowski. Like, I will get pumped on that because Filipowski with those three guys and playmaking upside, their scoring upside, and then Mark Mitchell's just the connecting utility weapon that plays tough defense.
Yeah.
I'm in. I'd be pumped on that. That'd be tough to deal with. Because I think Caleb could play your small ball 3 with just his game.
Yeah.
I know he's 6'5", but I think
he just grew 2 inches in the last half hour. So who's to know what he'll be next week?
But that'd be good.
Real quick, what do you think
ahead.
Mark Mitchell's listed at?
6'7".
Give me a weight.
220.
Duke has him listed at 6'9", 232.
I'm in.
That dude is playing power forward this year.
Oh gosh, this is my problem with the measurements on the team website. I need last year's. Oh wait, this is a hack. Okay, you talk and I'll find it out because I think ESPN, shout out Worldwide Leader of Sports, doesn't have the updated one. So I always get the fun one of like getting their measurements from freshman year. It's always great. Mark Mitchell, Duke, freshman, was 6'8", 220. So he grew an inch and put on 12 pounds. Thank you, Mark. I'm in.
Yes, and I think Caleb, actually being 6'5", or at least being listed at 6'5", makes the 3-guard lineup of him, McCain, Proctor a lot more feasible. I think it makes it a lot more realistic, and they'll probably have to play a good amount of zone with those 5 out there, but they do have the potential to go man and be super switch heavy. It'll be fascinating to see how Filipowski looks after that hip surgery. I just think there's a lot of really interesting ways they can go, and a couple dreadful ways that I'm horrified that they might go.
I'm right there with you.
Okay. That's all I got on Caleb Foster. Let's move on to Garwey Dual, who is one of my favorite players in this draft. He was tremendous during Hoop Summit week. I know he didn't really get to play much in the game, in the practices and scrimmages. He was giving guys the business. Number 44 recruit on ESPN, headed to Providence, 6'5", 190-pound point guard. Rucker, where are you at with Garwey?
I love Garwey. I think there's a lot of, draft diehards out there that have already started to get in on that train too. Big fan. I'm a very big fan. It's one of those. I think it's only a matter of time. I think he's going to be a popular name with NBA scouts. Wouldn't shock me if he's a one and done. Wouldn't shock me if he's a breakout sophomore guy that just explodes.
Yeah.
But I think it's pre-draft candidate just because teams are going to be like, no, we love you. We would take you early. And I don't know how early it is. It's just going to be really interesting to see what he can do this year. But the size, the length, the defense is very fun to get excited about. And then I will see playmaking stuff where I'm like, oh gosh. And there's just scoring natural instincts where
Yes.
I'm like, oh gosh. Like, so it's really fun. It's just a matter of time. I feel like, okay, when does it click? Is it going to click the second month of the season? And it's just like, everyone buckle up, or does it take a while? And I think the talent is so exciting. Love his defense. I'm trying to remember the wingspan. Doesn't he have a crazy wingspan? I feel like
I don't remember off the top of my
I'll
head, but I
find
think it
it.
was like I thought it was like plus 4 or 5. But it feels like it's like plus 2 feet, based on how many steals he gets and how quick and timely he is with his hands. I think the way that he plays on ball and acts as that true point guard and on ball creator is really special because he just plays at his own speed. And he can play slow, he can play fast, he never gets sped up. He's always under control and really composed under pressure. And he just has those long strides and that the strength too. I know he's skinny, but he plays really strong and can hold guys off and uses his shoulders well, and then uses that length to extend. He just plays at his own speed and gets into the paint whenever he wants. It's tough to get him uncomfortable on ball, which when you think about translating that to Providence and Big East play, that's fun.
He measured at Nike Hoop Summit with a 6'10.5" wingspan. There they had him listed at 6'4.5", 175. Providence's basketball site has him at 6'5", 190. So putting on 15s pretty damn sweet. And then, like Metcalf saying, almost add in +5. I mean, if this number's right, +6 wingspan. There's fun stuff.
Yeah.
He's a really, really fun player that I think it didn't take long. I think at Hoop Summit, drink for everyone. If every time we bring up Hoop Summit, I think that was like the first guy you brought up to me. You're like, man, the wall looks sweet. And then I think later Corey couldn't stop talking about it, and eventually me and Albert were going nuts about him. So there's plenty of fans out there.
Yeah.
No one think that you're starting that Army first, because it's been a very popular name, like circling, like Garwey. I mean, I'm going to have him top 20 easily. I absolutely love his game. It's just a guy like that. I'm not being like, oh, he's going to play in the NBA. Maybe. I'm like, no, it's going to happen. It's just how fast do things come together? But I don't think he's going to be one that you're chasing. Another guy. I don't think you're chasing Garwey Dual putting up 20 a game this year. It's not going to happen. I don't think so.
No.
But he might be putting up 2.5 steals and 5 assists and, almost 10 points a game, and just be like, oof, a lot of upside.
Yeah. So where are you at with his scoring game? Because I feel like the shooting mechanics look fine. I feel like he's pretty good with extension finishes and stuff around the rim, but it just doesn't feel like scoring is what he wants to be doing out there, and that he kind of I just want him to be a little more aggressive and trying to get his own shot at times, because he is so good at getting into the paint and creating for others. It's like, well, okay, now we need to balance that out and really keep the defense on their toes by getting your own shot and getting, there are times where he gets into the mid range and has a pull up jumper where it's like, God, that was sweet. And, sorry to go back to Hoop Summit, but I think the first play where I was like, holy shit, was I forget who was guarding him, but he had a hang dribble and just crossed up some dude and sent him stumbling the other direction and got to the elbow and just drained a pull-up jumper. It's like, oh my God, just the change of speed there, the fluidity of the jumper. It's like, where is this the vast majority of your possessions? I need to see this more because it's in there. It looks incredible. That's a real tool. That's an NBA tool. Let's see it a little more.
I think the best phrase you use, and it's my accurate feeling about Garwey, is just, I need you to be more aggressive. Like, there is stuff that he does where you're like, exactly you have the same reaction as you. I'll just be like, what in the world? Like, and it's just, I think that's where you get so excited because you're like, that is there. It's there. It's just the reps, the confidence. It's almost as if he understands his role to be a floor general, put people in position to succeed. But you got to get to that point where you have the confidence in your game to be like, all right, it's time for me to do some stuff. And I think once that balance comes out, and I think Providence is going to be great for him. Playing that conference this year is going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of buzz. And it's going to be interesting to see. And that's what I'm saying, like, wait and see mode with him in a it's a gray area for me to say that phrase, but I want to see if all of a sudden the switch comes on where he has a game where it's like, oh, Garwey finished with 20. Like, hey, here we go. Like, because there is stuff he does where you're like, whoo, that looks like a killer on the court. And I think then I see some flashes of like him attacking the basket and finishing. And then all of a sudden he'll drive the lane and throw down with anger. And you're like, I'm awake. Like, all right, let's go. So it just needs to be more consistent, be a little bit more, because it's one of those that you wake up and then you're like, okay, he's made a bunch of nice plays, but I want him to attack. I want him to be aggressive. And I just feel like there's just that balance. And it might be a young guard that's just realizing like, hey, I'm better offensively than I think. So
Yeah.
I think that will come around, but I'm right there with you. I just need some more aggressiveness. Are you going to be a connecting piece, or are you going to have that shift in your mind to be like, I'm the guy. I can be the guy.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We've kind of alluded to us loving the defense. What about it gets you excited?
I think it just is a bully. He could be a bully defensively. He can smother you. He can suffocate you. I think there's just a lot of really good stuff. What about you? Do you love the hands? Are you, the length just really stands out to me, where it's just like you could see why he has so much fun defensively. I feel like that's where I need the defensive mindset and confidence to match offensively. But what about you? What do you like about the defense?
Yeah, and the hands are what really stands out, and the length, because his timing and accuracy when he like reaches across a guy, and pokes the ball loose. It's a couple times a game, and he rarely gets called for a foul on it. He's just so quick. He's so accurate, and they're not fouls. It's not bad high school refs or anything. It's a real skill. I think there's some real good off ball stuff with him too at 6'5", now 190. I love that size for him, especially as a point of attack defender. Makes him real switchable on the perimeter too, especially with those hands. If he's going up against bigger guys who don't necessarily have a tighter handle, he's going to be wreaking havoc on that end. A nitpick is that I think how elite his hands are can kind of lull him into a sense of over comfortability with his fundamentals, and his footwork can get a little sloppy, and on closeouts or stuff, and he can get caught reaching and guys will blow past him. So that does need to tighten up, because at that size, and he does have the footwork to do it. It's just that consistency of staying locked in and not just be having that mindset of, I can bail myself out because I'm just gonna pick this dude's pocket, because that gets a lot harder to do as you scale up in levels. So that's really just a nitpick, and I do think it will get better based on competition and coaching demands and environment and all that stuff. There's a lot to like. It's really hard to look at his defense and come away with anything other than being super impressed.
And I think it's easy to nitpick it's easy to nitpick with high school film,
Yeah.
and it's
Oh God,
very
yeah.
easy to also have to remind yourself to be like, let's weigh it with it being in high school and being one of the best players on the court. Like we always talk, like the superstar factor is always a realistic thing in high school where we're like, hey, maybe he's coasting a little bit. So yeah, it's important to take note of it and make your notes of like, hey, I'd like to see this be
Yeah.
better. Because
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that translates to college, then you're like, this is potentially a thing now. But there's so much special fun stuff that he does defensively that I'm like, yeah, I can live with a little bit of that. It's just the fundamentals I think will turn up a little bit because of that next leap. A lot of guys we see that motor all of a sudden switch because they're like, yeah, I gotta be running full speed, But it's just it looks like an art to him defensively. Like it just looks like it's supposed to exist. Like you're just like, yeah, this is beautiful. It's very fun.
Yeah, and he does. So the clip we're running right now, I mean, he does this stuff a couple times a game where he's got a they're playing zone, but he's getting a high screen, gets over it, and as he's getting over it, he reaches across the ball handler's body and pokes the ball loose, doesn't touch the ball handler, clean steal, and then takes it the other way for the dunk.
Yeah, 2 dribbles, dunk from almost the other 3-point line, maybe 3 if you count the gather. 1,
By like his
2,
ability,
3.
but his ability there to simultaneously poke that ball loose while dodging the screen is so impressive. And obviously, that's not an elite screen setter necessarily there, but he's still got to get over it.
The defense looks things look like they're slowing down for him when he's on defense, which gets you the most excited about his upside. It's like that's where his game is like, welcome to my world, pulling a Freddy Krueger. And it's just, can the offense match that? Can those worlds start to cross paths and be on the same page? And then you're just horrified about the upside because of the tools, the frame, the length. I think the athleticism, as we just saw there, is very sneaky. Like he can get up and throw posters down. So it's just a really fun player that it's like, how long does it take for everything to come around? And um, Garwey's one of those players that's everyone's gonna be just drunk in love. I can't stand how much I quote Beyonce, but like everyone is going to love him as a prospect if he has a strong couple of games coming out of the gate, because they're just gonna be like, he's fun defensively, he looks composed. All of a sudden there's a burst and wingspan. I'm very intrigued. And he does stuff like that, and you're just like, this doesn't make sense. Like he's
So,
he's a rewind player. Like, well, okay, we're rewind that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just
and this just comes out of nowhere. So he's getting a high pick and roll. He gets blitzed out of it, just effortlessly goes behind his back through splits the double, and pulls up over the help defender in the mid range and drains the jumper. And those mechanics look good. It looks smooth. It looks effortless. Just the burst on that dribble move, the confidence in it, the just zero hesitation, completely unfazed by the defender. And it's just like, okay. He looks bored. It's like, really? Like you're gonna try and steal this from me? All right, I'm just gonna go do this.
yeah. I mean, defense doesn't know what the hell just happened.
Where'd he
Like the
go?
two, yeah. What in the world? How did you get by us? Like it's just some stuff that you're like, what? Like, and you just got to make note of like this could be something special because that play looks so simple to
Mhm.
him. It makes it look easy, and you're just like, is there something like awesome that's just going to start happening more often? Or I don't know. I just think it's a matter of time with him. Like, how long does he take to figure it out? Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Ball
So,
on a string,
the
like,
concern about him being skinny here, he uses his length to kind of counter that. He's not afraid of contact. He knows how to negate the shot blocker. Again, just playing at his own speed, just crosses up the defender, quick burst, keeps him on his hip, jumps into the shot blocker, extends with his right hand, and finishes with the ball in a spot that the help defender has no chance of getting to.
And it's thin bodied, but that's the understanding of angles to counter that, and the determination to not be afraid to go at size. And I think this is where people like have to understand why evaluators get drunk with the wingspan stuff, is because if you understand how it could be a weapon for you offensively too,
Yeah.
like extending that arm to shield you and be able to finish with the touch, like that's where you're like, all right, there's some understanding, there's some great basketball feel with his
And
game.
the willingness and eagerness to create that contact. It's like, yeah, he's skinny. He's a teenager. He's in high school. 90% of these guys are skinny, and 100% of them are going to get stronger. So it's like,
Exactly.
you can add strength, you can add muscle, you can get a guy stronger. You can't, it's a lot more difficult to change the mindset of a guy who's timid and afraid of contact while being skinny. But if they're skinny and they already have that mindset of, I don't care who's coming at me, like I'm just gonna finish through them. Like I don't care about contact. That is really encouraging. So I think there's some really fun scoring upside with him. But for me, it's the playmaking stuff is like day one ready.
Just to go on, I mean, yeah, it's an erotic sequence. To go off of what you just said, it's always funny to me, the skinny guy that is fearless to initiate contact, that all of a sudden puts on 15 pounds, is a scary person.
Which
just
he
became a
apparently did.
scary person because he's like, oh, all of a sudden I can dish out a little contact. But yeah, this is the stuff you see where it's just ridiculous, great feel. Like the maturity with that possession of right after his counter to understand ball's got to go to the corner because he just feels out 3 defenders closing on him, 4. And he understands where the ball should go. Like passes it on the money, brick. But you love it. And I feel like you see a lot of that stuff. And that's where I get excited, is like the defense. And then all of a sudden the playmaking comes alive. Like he's a snake through traffic sometimes. It's just understanding how to use that step and getting places with each dribble is something that will drive me so in love. Like when you have one dribble and look at how far he just got off of that crossover, that's understanding your length and woof.
Yeah, and I just love how patient he is in these clips where it's all right, explode off the first screen. All right, now I got a second screen. Let's decelerate, see what this defender does. All right, help defender screwed up his side to defend. I'm gonna snake back across where I just came from, explode into there, draw 3 defenders. I know I have 2 guys on the wing here. I'm gonna, look off the corner defender, look up to the wing, make a no look pass out to the corner for a wide open 3.
I mean, play that one more time, Metcalf. I'm sorry. I wanted to see something. 1, 2. So after that first cross, it takes him 2 dribbles to get from basically half court to lower block. I mean, it's just that's stuff that stands out to me of like getting somewhere with your steps, getting somewhere with your moves, your counters. And I know there's a lot of guys that like it, Giannis obviously because he's built like an alien where he can just get places quick. But like if you're a guard with that size and you
Yeah.
can accomplish covering ground without needing to dribble the ball 10 times, like that's tough to deal with.
Yeah, and then just this last one again, just changing gears, getting to where he needs to go,
Oof.
moving defenders, and making the right read. Just toying with his on ball defender here, and that's Jacoby Walter. That's a good defender.
It's
Get
just so hard to being slithery like this is really tough to deal with defensively because you can move quick to set people up
Mhm.
and then you can just wiggle your way past defenders. And guys are like, what the heck? How did he get by me? And then all of a sudden he's dribbling the ball low to kick it out. It's just special stuff.
It's a rough 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I love that there are a couple times where he could have made this pass where, okay, so he could make it, the pass to the corner now, but that guy, is that necessarily the right time? I don't think so. Does that defender get his hand on it? Potentially. If he goes wing then to corner, I think the defense is rotating by then. Like you said, keeps his handle low through a lot of traffic there, collapses the defense just to create that even bigger window for the shooter who doesn't capitalize.
Yeah, it was a tough attempt. Hopefully it's better now.
Okay. I think Bryce Hopkins is going to have fun with playing with Garwey. That's
it should be a very fun combination for sure. Bryce is going to get a lot of easy buckets because of Garwey, and I think the other world too. I love Bryce. I'm pumped to watch him. I just feel like he's a fun college guy to watch and enjoy. Watch teams try to figure out how to slow him down.
Matas Buzelis, arguably saving the best for last. ESPN's highest rated recruit out of these 3 that we're talking about today, number 5 on their recruiting ranks for this year. I have him listed at 6'9", 190 pounds. Probably both going to be higher once Ignite releases their kind of full scope or their rosters to start the year. But for a guy his size, very skinny. I'm really struggling with Buzelis. Rucker, where do you want to start with him?
I think he's been one of the most hyped guys. There's been a lot of people that are like, hey, this is my number 1, which will get my full focus because I'm like, if you're getting the preseason number 1 tag, I need to see what you're all about. Very skinny, very athletic. I think gorgeous shot. Like he can shoot the crap out of the ball. If he could put a move on you and get somewhere in a hurry when it comes to straight line driving, but I'm not there to have him number 1. I think it's more of a wait and see for me because I think that physicality with the G League, can he survive against some of those bigger guys that are hungry and going to be vicious? And I know, as we're recording this, he's got a big test coming up with, I think September 6th to September 8th, which on the lookout. I think we're going to try to do a playback for all those fans. We've missed doing those, but the G League are playing the Perth Wildcats. That'll be awesome. Alex R. getting to see Holland and Buzelis, hopefully. If they have some out of nowhere where they're like, oh, they're not playing, I'm going to lose. Just lose it. I was very out on Buzelis at 1, and I was very critical of like having him as a top 3 guy. And me and you have talked behind the scenes. It's just like, the more I've watched, the more I've gotten intrigued, but I'm not still there. I think Buzelis would be an awesome piece to have as your NBA 3rd guy or connecting piece where you're just like, he can shoot it. He's 6'9". He's got some bounce. He can get downhill. He'd be a really nice, fun piece to grow with. I just don't see a world in which he's the guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I definitely get that. So I think we differ on him in a couple areas already. The physicality.
Really?
I don't think he's a good athlete.
Oh, okay.
I think he's stiff. I think he's slow.
I'm just saying he can
dunk
it. Yeah, he can.
Yeah, he's 6'9".
I know, but he can do some stuff around there. And I agree. If you're 6'9", you should be dunking it. But
I feel like it's all really stiff and very much one speed. He's very good at getting to his spots because I think his footwork and his balance are exceptional, and that comes through on the defensive end as well. I think he moves his feet really well. I think his positioning is really good when he kind of meanders into the lane. He's really difficult for defenders to keep him from getting where he wants to go. I think he does that a lot, and then he'll like kind of just methodically get into like these mid-range turnarounds. But nothing that he really does screams athletic to me.
Yeah, I guess the athleticism above the rim is what I'm saying. Like he can be a guy that plays with some verticality, but I'm right there with you with off the dribble. You stop the first one and it's almost like, okay, move on. And that's where I'm at, where it's like, if my number one guy can't get his own, I'm gonna struggle to put you that high. And it's like there's a lot of times where he has some flashes of counters where he gets places fast and like he can
Yeah, I think
cover.
he has a good handle and like
Yes,
can
and
counter defensive mistakes and stuff like that.
yes, and if he has an opening, he can get somewhere
Mhm.
fast. It's just I don't see the full creation package there yet. And it might take it. That's why the Ignite's perfect for him because they will work on that. But there is stiffness to me. I get what you're saying. It's just a tough one because everyone's going to be like, well, he could shoot the crap. And the numbers at high school look really, really well. But
They're incredible.
yeah, I mean, he's like mid 40s from high school, which it's a
I mean,
beautiful stroke from outside.
in spot up, he's 81st percentile. Pick and roll ball handler, 83rd percentile. Overall jump shots, 87th percentile. 44% overall from the floor. True shooting percentage of 61.6 on jumpers. 48% from two, 43% from three. 83rd percentile shooting off the catch. 96th percentile shooting off the dribble. And that's at Sunrise through however many games.
And
423 possessions.
and people are gonna be like, those numbers are awesome. What are you talking? There's just the stuff that I'm wondering how he's gonna look with the Ignite when I don't think he's gonna be just this give me the ball and let me go to work. I think he's gonna be if you could get Buzelis and you have a what team should we use as an example? Detroit, fine. I'm just saying, like, the idea of like Cade's the guy. You have Ivy, you have Durant. If you could add Buzelis on the wing, oh yeah, I would love that because
Yeah.
of the size, the outside shooting, the simplicity to make his game and have an impact. But if I was a team and I'm drafting Buzelis to be the guy right now, August 31st, as we're recording, I'm just saying right now, this could completely shift. He's going to the right place with the Ignite that will develop the weaknesses of his game.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, though, I would be scared. But as I just said, going to the perfect place that will work on making him a more all-around player. And I like the foundation of stuff, but there's just more questions with his game than I have Justin Edwards at 1. I feel much better right now about Justin Edwards. And Buzelis has some fun tools. I just have questions.
Yeah, and by all accounts, all accounts, he's one of these kids who gets it and has an awesome work ethic. So, when we talk about, he needs to get stronger, I expect him to. I think he's going to. I don't think he's going to shoot it at the same level that he did in high school. That's not saying he's a bad shooter. I think he's a very good shooter, and in time can get to or be the shooter that we hope he can be, and resemble what he was as a shooter in high school. But I think there are major fixes that need to go into it when we think about comparing him going up against NBA competition. He wasn't typically being defended by another 6'9", 200-pound dude. He was typically being defended by like a 6'6", 175-pound dude. And being able to kind of methodically get to your spots and then turn around and shoot over a guy is a lot easier. He's not going to be able to do that in the G League, at least right now. A lot can change once they actually start playing. Who knows? I hope I'm wrong. I just have a lot of questions, and this isn't to say that I'm out on Buzelis by any means. I just think there are a lot of red flags. the jumper feels really slow. I love him as a spot up shooter. When you talk about putting him in a place like Detroit, playing off of guys like Cade and Ivy, and being that floor spacer, spotting up, and being that knockdown shooter, I think that's awesome. He's not going to be a guy running off screens. I don't think the pull up game is going to be as efficient and deadly as it was in high school. I think there's a lot of stuff that he has to go through, and how he responds to the difficulties and the physicality of the G League is going to be fascinating, because I think out of all of the Ignite guys this year, I think he could be the one that faces the toughest tests.
Yeah. And before every Pistons fan gets pissed off, I did not forget about Asar. I brought him up basically in the first 5 minutes of last 2 episodes. So let's calm down. But I'm just saying that was the first team that came off the top of my head where I'm trying to point out you have a clear guy, which would be Kate. And then if Buzelis you could shine his strengths. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be a great addition. But I'm not there right now to draft Buzelis to be a number one pick. I have to have the feeling that he can become the engine to an offense. Like, I could give him the ball and be like, we need a bucket, go get it. Buzelis is not there for me right now. Call it a frame thing. It's not just the frame for me. I'm just watching him on the court and I'm not there. We'll see. Like, I completely will back you up. I think he faces the most challenges. Ron Holland, I think, is still going to find a way to be this high motor garbage guy that makes a lot of points on cleanup duty and is going to be athletic, and he cuts and can get downhill fast. Fine. Buzelis, I think, is just he's going to face some challenges with some scrappy, hungry defenders that will get up right in him. Hope I'm wrong. Same. Really, really hope I'm wrong, because there is a world in which he gets punched in the mouth right away and in the beginning of the year, adjusts, and things start to click. And then you're like, this is the upside. This is the potential. This is what everyone was excited about. And I'm right there with you, Metcalf. I'm not trying to just be like, oh, I'm out on Buzelis. I'm very intrigued. If he shoots even close to where he just shot, yeah, we're going to be talking about him as a top 3 pick. But right now, I have a lot of questions. And anyone that has him at number 1, I get it.
Yep.
It's not my cup of tea right this second. And that's why we wait for a full year of film and we evaluate, and why I will be going to see the Ignite this year multiple times.
Yeah, so both of us have always been really big proponents of the Ignite program and how they get those players the most NBA ready by working on their weaknesses and putting them in uncomfortable situations to really grow their game and make them well-rounded players, even though, it's historically so far in what are we, 3 years in? It's kind of hurt all of their draft stocks because they haven't been these incredible performers who have just shown out, which I think is, should be expected. But then we look at how they've all kind of transitioned to the NBA. A lot of them have really grown their games in really important ways. So I kind of expect Buzelis's draft stock to get hurt by this process. I would be really surprised if he ends up going number 1. And that's not to say that he isn't worthy of going number 1, 10 years from now. But I think he's going to face a lot of trials that shine some really bright lights on weaknesses of his game. But I think it's going to be really good for him in terms of getting NBA ready. It wouldn't surprise me if he has a pre-draft year similar to what we saw from Usman Jang, where that first half was awful. He looked atrocious. He didn't look like he belonged on the same court as a lot of those guys. And then he started turning stuff around. The physicality, the speed, it all started. He started catching up to all of it, and things really started clicking for him on both ends. Buzelis has the foundation of a player who should be top 5, who should, top 10 minimum. So it wouldn't surprise me if he gets off to a really rough start and then things start clicking for him and he builds his way back up into the lottery and, even potentially top 5, because there is that foundation. And we haven't even talked about how good of a passer he is.
it's Jaden Hardy. Like we just saw this with Jaden Hardy. Everyone freaked out about the high turnovers, the low shooting percentage to start out the year. And it's like, it's so important with the Ignite to understand the bigger picture when you're watching these guys. Like if Buzelis comes out of the gate and struggles, maybe they're putting him in a position to run the show offensively, or maybe they're putting him in a point to be like, you're going to have to learn to create offensively. Like we might run some ISO plays for you. They don't care about winning the whole G League. They care about developing these players. So I'm right there with you. It would not shock me if maybe he takes a little tumble because it's a slow start. Maybe things are struggling to figure it out. And that's why I love the exhibition game that's coming up with the NBL. Like, that's a brilliant idea. I love that. I hope that's a thing they do every year. And it would not shock me if it's kind of like a downward motion to fall right back up where he starts to kind of click and figure it out. And it seemed like a great kid that works his butt off. I imagine he's going to end up being in the conversation of being in the top 10 easily, but it won't surprise me if it goes either way. It won't surprise me if he hits the ground running and he looks awesome, because it seems like every year that happens where it's just boom. It's like, oh, they're okay. All right, buckle up. Like, and you know, we're not perfect. We've had our mistakes, but I'm cautious right now when it comes to Buzelis and being like, this is my number one guy. I'm like, oh no, not right now. But I can be wrong, and I hope I am wrong, and I hope he's just lighting the net on fire from outside. And I'm like, whew, buckle up, let's go.
Where are you at with him defensively?
I don't know. It's not bad. It's not something where I'm like, oh, he's a travesty. I think there's just I need some proof that, like, if he struggles out of the gate offensively and really buys in defensively, I'll be like, okay, I'm in. I'll buy into some stock. But what about you, Metcalf?
I struggle with it because I think he's a good processor. I think he has good awareness. I think he's a good help side defender. I think he
Is
moves
it the
his
flashiness?
I think he moves his feet really well. He's slow, but I think his balance and footwork is really good. So there is some kind of switchability type potential. I worry about the lack of rim protection. I think he's a really good like secondary shot blocker, not like the traditional like weak side, swatting it into the fifth row type, but like when a guy gets kind of hung up by their primary defender or walled up, he's really good at coming in from behind or from the side and, being that second guy to swipe down on the shot. So that's a real skill. I think he gets moved incredibly easily.
Because of that frame.
Right.
And he's
going to get stronger. I know he's going to get stronger.
No, yes. But make no mistake.
It's going to lead to a lot of really troubling video compilations on Twitter this year. It's going to lead to a lot of, probably troubling think pieces on him. There's going to be a lot of really bumpy roads because of that frame and lack of strength where it is currently. But what's going to be more important for me is, how is he battling? Is he absorbing the contact? Is he in the right position? Is he doing the right things, but just getting out muscled? Because if that's the case, then it's like, okay, well, 2 years from now, he's going to be strong enough to deal with that. And he already has the mental aspect down where he is in those positions. So that's more how I'm kind of approaching what his defense, or the scouting process of his defense this year.
And it's not frame shaming. Like, it's just, this is the truth.
He's a teenager.
Like, Chet was skinny. Chet Holmgren was a skinny player. Everyone wanted to talk about the frame, but I was like, but do you watch him defensively? Like, do you see what he's doing on the court? Do you see how he's using his frame, his thin frame, to dominate defensively?
Yeah.
And also make a factor or an impact around the basket. Buzelis is going to get bullied. Like, there are hungry, possessed guys in the G League that are doing everything in their power to make it on a roster. And Buzelis is going to be going up against them. And they're going to say, this is a skinny guy that I'm going to go right at his body. I'm right there with you. If he could just keep battling and show that he's willing to take on the punishment, and then all of a sudden starts to adjust, yeah, we're going to look down in a couple of years and be like, oh, he put on 20 pounds over 2 years, and now he's dishing it out. And just going to be a really interesting year with that Ignite team, because there's some preseason names that I'm more excited about making noise going upwards than some consensus have these names at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of names on that roster I'm really excited about. I know everyone's Buzelis, Ron Holland are the big names, but there's some other ones I'm really pumped to see.
Same. That's all I got on Buzelis. We're rooting for him. Want to be wrong. By no means are either of us out on him.
No, not at all.
Any final thoughts on him?
No, I just don't. We're doing the preseason stuff to educate on questions and where we want to see improvement areas. Just because we talked about this with Buzelis does not mean I'm like, oh, I'm out on Buzelis. I mean, not even close. No. I just think there's a lot of questions for a player that I'm potentially going to have, or a lot of people are going to have number one. I just have more questions. And if you have him number one, I just said, I'm fine with it. I understand why people are going to be intrigued with his talent. I just think there's a lot of prove it areas where, like, I need you to prove this. I need you to prove this. And when those add up, you're not necessarily going to answer every single one. So it's just like, what is going to develop? What are we going to be looking at? And I could just see it kind of being, the last thing I would say is, and where I'm going with that is, every year there's a preseason guy in the top 5 that does not end up in the top 5. And it would not shock me if Buzelis is that guy. Might be his teammate. I don't know. There's a lot of other guys that I think are going on the way up, trajecting to go up. And I think Buzelis has a case in which I wouldn't be surprised if he goes down. He could be at number 1 still in a couple months, and we could be like, okay, we were wrong. But I think there's a world in which he could go down a little bit.
100% agree. That's all I got, Rucker.
That's all I got.
And I believe you have a couple pieces coming next week.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little 2-parter. Everyone's getting the itch. It's funny to go back and kind of see that there's a lot of drafts opening or loaded right now at No Ceiling. So everyone's getting the itch. We're going to open the floodgates and be fully back soon. But I'm going to do a little bit of a 2-parter. And the goal is to give everyone some excitement. About the 24 class. I'm talking about a wide range of prospects. That's why it's 2 parts. Basically, it's pulse check. So I think everyone's going to enjoy it. It's just me having way too many thoughts that I had to get on paper. And one night I was finally like, enough's enough. Let's get writing. And then I got to a point where I was like, yep, this needs to be a 2-parter. It's too long. So I'm excited about that one. I'll have that up next week. But yeah, Metcalf, thanks for doing this one. We're close. We're closing in.
We're very close.
Less than 70 days till college basketball. I think we're around 50-something days for NBA, so we're close.
Love it. I will also be having a big Jacoby Walter piece coming soon. I'm saying it on here to hold myself accountable because I have it written in my head.
There's nothing better than doing that. I'm a king of doing that, like posting it on Twitter just so I'll be like, I have to write it now.
It's like, well, shit. People know about it now. So that'll be coming hopefully in the next week or so. But once again, I'm Tyler Metcalf. You can follow me on Twitter at tmetcalf11. He is Tyler Rucker at Tyler_Rucker. You can find all of our merchandise at noceilingsnba.bigcartel.com. All of our written work that is 100% free at noceilingsnba.com. At No Ceilings NBA across all socials. No Ceilings TV on YouTube. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and a 5-star rating. Till next time. See ya.